What is up, Passport family? Back again with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Passport Bros burnt out in Brazil. And this is the second YouTuber that I've seen recently that has come basically to YouTube to talk about being burnt out in Brazil. There's another one who actually lived in Brazil for a year. I believe his name is Skylar. I do follow his channel a bit here and there. So I wanted to talk about it and definitely touch on some things that the primary thing is if you are going to other countries specifically for dating, it's very easy to get burned out when you're not used to how cultural things are there, but also, when you're dealing with women who maybe don't have as much opportunities or in a poor economical country or city. And, as I say a lot is, it's kind of what's expected when you're dealing with people whose average income is between 250 to maybe $350 a month. So I haven't really watched this video yet. This is my first time seeing it. So let's just jump into it.
I'm gonna do this live stream because I watched my previous live stream and I realized that I missed a lot of things that I wanted to touch on. So because I didn't take proper notes the last time, but this time I did. So I'm gonna touch on a lot of stuff, including Brazil burnout. I'm gonna get more into how I meet women in Brazil. And I'm gonna talk about a bunch of other relevant things with regard to being here in Brazil and in Rio in particular.
I mean, you can hear it in his voice that is, he's definitely fed up with Brazil, or at least definitely Rio. For me, there's definitely challenges when it comes to dating, even here in Medellin. And I've heard that, or I have friends that are expats who've had to take time away from Medellin. For example, to maybe go to Guatapé, which is like 2 hours away, and it's a little bit more secluded. But I have a friend who went out there with his dog and him, and he had a girl he was talking to out here that he would have come up maybe for a weekend or something and then send her back. But for the most part, he wanted to just be out there alone with his dog and basically get a break from Medellin. And I always say this: if you're going specifically for women, then it's going to be very easy to get burned out. But if you actually genuinely enjoy the city, the people, and everything else that that either country or that city has to offer, depending on wherever you are geographically, then it'll be a little bit harder to get burned out, and you're not so much, the time you have there isn't, the results aren't based on, dating and women.
But gonna wait a few more minutes for more people to get into the stream, and then I'm gonna start the lecture.
Let's skip ahead a bit on this.
Hello,
What's your name?
I named Tom.
Do you mean my name is Tom?
Yes.
Unless you can display that you're serious about being here, they'll kind of brush you off. A lot of the women will just brush you off. And also, the women here are a little more standoffish and not as, engaging as they used to be. And I think social media has a lot to do with that. It seems like, not just here, but everywhere, women are getting so much attention online. Women are getting so much attention online that, offline attention doesn't really mean much. Global Paper already did that. I already did the colonoscopy. I did that last year. Everything's clear. I wanted to get into like cold approaching is cool. One of the ways you can meet girls is cold approaching. I touched on that in the last video. But cold approaching has a high failure rate.
That's the thing as well, just to jump back really quick to talk about, he's talking about women get a lot of attention on social media. between dating apps and social media, it's true women get all the validation and attention they really need. This is also plays a part in why you just don't see as many beautiful women out walking around or going out as much, because they don't really need to get attention and validation they normally would, say, back in the 90s or early 2000s. um, there is nowhere that you are going to go, let's just say, even if it's abroad, regardless, even if it's probably a small town, where you're going to find a woman who is legitimately at 8.5, 9, or a 10, and she doesn't know that because of TikTok, because of Instagram, because of, whatever other platform she's using to, market herself and put herself out there. So yeah, it's extremely hard to compete with that, but it is what it is. It's the reality that we live in. And then also cold approach in general. I mean, it does work even here in Medellin. You can still cold approach, but in general, that's gonna have a high failure rate as well, because you don't know if the girl is married, if she's your type. But I always say, still, you should do it anyways, just because it more so works on your social skills and you challenging yourself to go out and meet new people. You should at least do one or two cold approaches a day, even if it doesn't, really go anywhere. But that you shouldn't stop doing just because it has a high failure rate, or not a high success rate. Don't do it don't cold approach being outcome dependent. Just do it because you want to be social, you want to meet people, you want to have fun.
Everybody hold your questions till I'm done with the lecture. I'll answer all your questions at the end. Cold approaching has a high failure rate. So warm approaching, has a higher success rate for obvious reasons. For example, one example of warm approaching is that, for example, I'll be walking at night sometimes along the beach walk here. I'll walk past a kiosk or restaurant. There'd be some women sitting down, and I'll walk past and look for eye contact. If I see a woman or a group of women looking too long, I'll approach them directly and introduce myself. That's one way. Out here on the beach, I'll be walking, I'll stand up and go to the water. I'll be coming back to the water, and I'll see a woman or women looking at me a little too long, and I'll walk up and introduce myself. Or sometimes I'll walk the beach here with my sunglasses. And when you wear your sunglasses, you can see who's watching you, who's looking at you without them noticing that you're looking. So, and if I notice any eye contact that's a little too long, I'll go right in. It's the easiest thing. So yeah, warm approach, choosing signals. People ask me why am I married? Why I'm not married? I really don't. I don't think I want to be married, man. I don't want to be. I kind of see myself getting bored in your own life. If you think having a woman is gonna make you happy, it's not. It's gonna make you miserable, and you're gonna make her miserable. So you can't make women the center of your universe. I know a lot of young guys who don't have a lot of experience, life experience, relationship experience. They think, oh, if I get all these girls, things are gonna be great. No, it's not. It's not. Success with women is not what you think it is. You know what I'm saying? Jay Clyde, what's happening? My man Jeff just texted me, said he's at the Baca next to mine. But yeah, so it's cool, because when you come here to Brazil or anywhere, you're gonna be the source of entertainment. You're gonna be the source of everything. You're gonna be paying for mostly everything. You know what I'm saying? So if you're not ready to take that on, I don't suggest you do. But if you're ready to take it on, if you're ready for that responsibility, then go for it.
And that same thing is true here in Medellin, or just Colombia in general. I believe that's most Latin American countries. maybe with the exception for like Uruguay or Argentina, definitely Argentina, where it's a little bit more, I would say, feminist. But the same thing is true here. You are going to be the one responsible for everything financially, just about. You may find some women who will pay for some little things, but in general, you are going to be responsible for majority of the financial burden. So, like he said, if that's not something you are prepared for, then don't come.
But don't make women your sole reason for existence. I know that we as men, that's a driving force for a lot of men, but at the same time, it can be a slippery slope because you're basing your worth upon what a random woman thinks about you. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you build yourself up as a man first. You know, so that women can sense that purpose and that drive within you. You know what I'm saying? Because no woman wants to be the center of a man's universe. Contrary to all the hubris that you see online, most women don't want that. They don't want to be the center of a man's universe. They want a man that's already about something. So make sure you take care of that. I wanted to talk about the pay-for-play thing here. Well, first of all, before I get into that, I want to talk about Brazil burnout. A while back, Vibing with Fred, if y'all know him, Vibing with Fred, he dropped a video about burnout in Brazil. And I wanted to piggyback off of that. Being here in Brazil is not easy, contrary to what I may portray or what other content creators may portray. It's not easy. It's one thing to live in a place, another thing to vacation in a place. For example, my last trip, I left here in August. No, I left in October. And I was totally burnt out. I'm like, fuck this shit. I got to go home. I got work to do. And I don't stay here. I don't feel the need to live here the whole year. A lot of guys ask me, why don't you stay there permanently? I don't feel the need to do so because I don't want to take this place for granted, number one. And number two, I really don't like the winters here. I don't like being here during the winter time, their winter. So I'd rather go somewhere else. Go back to the States, go somewhere else. And regroup and come back.
Why you would pick going back to the United States over staying in Brazil or staying wherever you are, I have no idea. I have absolutely no desire to go back to the United States unless I absolutely have to, maybe to visit friends or family or something like that. But in general, if I don't have a reason to go back to the United States, I'm not going. Right now, currently in Medellin, between, I want to say, January and maybe May is like the rainy season, or at least this year has been a very rainy season. So the weather has sucked here. It hasn't been very great, but if you decide you want to live somewhere, you got to take the good with the bad. I guess for some people, if you have the opportunity to get up and leave and go to another country and live there for a few months, then come back. But I always say this is extremely hard to get integrated somewhere and really become a part of that culture and that place if you're constantly leaving and coming back. Yeah, you may learn a lot and, be very acclimated with the city or that country, but it's not the same when you actually are just living there full time, regardless of what's happening, good, bad, ugly. You stick it out. For example, I have a friend who's lived here in Medellin 15 years. A brother originally from Long Beach, California, and he's been here 15 years straight. Yeah, he's traveled a little bit, but for the most part, he's just lived here. You cannot tell he is not, I would say, American. He, almost sounds Colombian, knows everything about Medellin, almost as if it's the back of his hand. So, if you before you decide to move somewhere or want to move somewhere, definitely make sure it's a place that you can stay. As I always say, do your investigation period. Um, but yeah, it's extremely hard to get acclimated if you're just going to keep coming and going, or whenever you don't like a certain season or months, leave and come back.
When I start missing this place, the language barrier can be tough. Uh, the little cultural differences can be tough.
And I literally just made a video about this as well. Why expats or why passport bros shouldn't come to Medellin or to Colombia, and cultural differences is a huge thing. Once you have certain, I would say, things embedded in your mind of how women should be or things should be, and they aren't that way, it's extremely hard to revert and start all over again, definitely depending on your age. For example, I'm 40 years old and I've only known dating and cultural things to be one way for 40 years that I've been alive. Now I have traveled and seen other cultures, but still I would always go back home and you're just used to things being how they are. But when you travel somewhere else, it can be extremely frustrating dealing with that. And like I said, I touched on that in my last video. If you haven't seen it, go check that out. And I would also say this as well. If you leave and you miss a place, then it probably is a good sign that you probably should just stay there. Don't, basically don't be a bitch and leave once you feel some type of burnout, and then, um, you know, go away and be like, oh, now I miss it again. I'm going to come back. And then when I'm burned out again, I'm going to leave. It's like nothing's going to change as far as cultural differences and all that. That's still going to be there when you come back. So you might as well just tough it out, get used to it, and get acclimated. Um, that's all I really can say on that part.
It's great. Don't get me wrong, but you have to be able to jump around a little bit. You can't stay here, particularly here in Rio. I'm never here in Rio more than a few months because
if you don't know how to make chords, this is it.
You can drag one of these chord progressions in. Boom, just like that.
every place gets old at some point. And also it's important that I think a reason why a lot of men burn out here is because they stay within, they don't cultivate friendships outside of the expat circle. You know what I'm saying?
And just to touch on that, just from my own personal experience, it can be extremely hard. For example, here in Medellin, it can be hard to have genuine friendships here. One, because of the language barrier. If you don't speak the language, in his case, Portuguese, or in my case, Spanish, if you don't speak it fluently, it's hard to hang out with people and be a part of a social group when you don't understand, more than 20% of what's being said. Or whenever there's jokes, everyone's laughing, you're missing out on a joke. You have to ask someone to translate for you. And then once they translate, you're like, oh, okay, I get why they're laughing. Oh, well, can you translate this for me? Because you want to add to the joke. And then that moment has already passed. So you've missed the opportunity to be funny or humorous or whatever, because, you didn't understand and you can't communicate as well. So yeah, it can be extremely hard to have genuine friendships outside the expat community as well. Here in Colombia, like, women generally aren't the ones who message guys first. They may respond, but they're not the ones to message first. So you're not going to get a lot of women who are like, just messaging you like, hey, what's up? How are you? Hope you're doing well. Hey, let's catch up. Let's grab a coffee or something like that. You don't get that very often here in Medellin, or at least in Colombia. And this has just been my personal experience. There may be people out there who've had different, but for me personally, I haven't had that experience. Like I said, I can message girls I know from that I dance with in bachata, or I've met in other social situations, and yeah, they'll respond, but they're not usually the ones to communicate to you first. And it can definitely be a little tiring to always have to be the one to reach out to people first and initiate the contact all the time. So yeah, you may have acquaintances, people that you may see and say what's up to every now and then, but like I said, to build that genuine friendship, you have to get used to that cultural part of, hey, you're just going to have to be the one always to reach out and message first and initiate to meet up or whatever. So that can be hard. And if you're only making expat friends, generally most of them don't want to live here. So, or live in the place that you are. They're there for a few months and then they're off to the next country. So you continuously have to make new friends. It's almost like being in a new school for 3 months and then took it out, and then you go back to another new school, and then another new school, and another new school. That it's definitely hard to create those genuine bonds.
It's important to cultivate Brazilian friendships because your Brazilian friends are going to introduce you to people in places that you might not know, that you might not have discovered otherwise. You know what I'm saying? So don't just hang out with the expats here or anywhere for that matter. Cultivate local friendships with local people. You know what I'm saying? I know some guys who've been here for a long time and they don't have many Brazilian friends. You know, cultivate some Brazilian friendship. Don't just hang out with expats all the time. Another thing with the burnout is some people ask me, every once in a while I get this question: why don't you start a business in Brazil? Well, sometimes people ask me that question, I can tell that they've never ran a business in their life, because running a business requires a lot. Running a business is like having a job.
So I'm actually potentially in the process of starting a business here in Medellin, and I will tell you that if you do not speak the language fluently or have people that you trust that can speak the language fluently, it's very hard to start a business and run a business successfully. You can't be going to your employees and using a translator or having someone else try to communicate your messages for you. It just doesn't hit the same if it's not coming from the boss or the owner. So that makes it very difficult. As well is starting a business, you're going to get got in some way. Somebody's going to get you. Basically, they're going to hustle you, charge you more or whatever because you're not from there. You don't know. A good friend of mine, he's gone through this, with starting a business and, with basically the accountant stealing money from him. It's going to happen. And these are all things you got to deal with starting a business abroad. Yeah, it's great in this case if you want to live in Medellin and you want to get a investor's visa. Great, you need to have a business here in order to get that visa. But just to start a business is a lot of risk involved. It's a lot of, I'm going to say a lot of stumbling you're going to do while you're trying to learn, in the process. I've seen, a lot of expats here who've gone through those same things.
And I don't want to work when my money is working for me. That makes no sense to me. And also, why would I want to earn money in a weaker currency? That makes no sense to me.
The main reason too, as well, why you would want to open a business is more so it's giving you pillars or anchors. I've talked about this before in other videos, but if you really want women in that local market to take you seriously, or people in general, not just women, but people in general to take you seriously, it helps if you have what I call anchors, things that are tying you down and connecting you to that city or place or wherever it is that you are. It shows that you're not going to just get up and leave. And a lot of brothers are like, oh, well, I think in the part I skipped there where he was like, the local women aren't really going to take you seriously, or in general, in most Latin American places, the gringo factor is not much of a factor anymore. It doesn't have that, that wow value like it used to back in the day, is because a lot of foreigners are coming in, having fun. They're there for a short period of time and leaving, and women are seeing that, all right, well, nothing long-term is going to come out of this. There's nothing in it for me besides, short-term fun or whatever. And, so it just doesn't have the appeal anymore that it used to of, oh, maybe I'll meet a foreigner, get married, have a family, and I have the opportunity to have a better life versus, oh, I only have the opportunity to get my back blown out and that's it, basically for a few months or the weekend or whatever it is. So the more pillars you have or anchors you have in that city, it just shows that you're more serious about being there and you're not a weekend warrior or you're just somebody there that's passing or going to be there for a few months or you're constantly in and out.
Having a job running a business requires you to hire people, to fire people. You got to worry about taxes, licensing, and things like that, depending on what you're doing. If you got to worry about your employees possibly plotting against you. If somebody doesn't show up for work, you may have to take their place. Things like that you got to think about. So I don't want to work. I want my money to work for me, so I can have more time freedom. Oh, you should start a business in Brazil. I don't want to start a business in Brazil. I don't want my time and my energy tied up into something where I have to show up and manage and oversee and all that stuff. I don't want all that maintenance. Cosmetic procedures in Brazil. I mean, cosmetic procedures here in Brazil are fairly cheap. You can get dental work done for very cheap. When I was in a different city and I got a facial done for like 130 reais, complete facial. You know what I'm saying? But she put something over my face and my pores, it cleaned out all the pores in my skin on my face. And I could see and feel the difference. It was great. Other procedures you might want to get done. So take advantage of it. If you come here to Brazil, you want to get dental work done, go get it. It's cheap. They're not going to hit you over the head like they do in America. All right, the pay for play. I wanted to get into the pay for play stuff. Like I said in the last video.
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of all my tasks. I start by brain dumping everything I need to get done.
The pay for play stuff, I treat it like a fire extinguisher in a glass case, break in case of emergency. I never want to make that my whole get down.
So I want to touch on this as well as far as pay for play. Obviously, it's a huge thing in Brazil as well. It's a thing here. I also touched on this in that last video. Once again, if you haven't seen that yet, go check that out. But honestly, it's going to be extremely hard to find extremely, extremely beautiful women in any country. No matter it's Latin America, especially Latin America, but not only Latin America, Europe, wherever you go, that these women are not involved in either some type of pay for play or monetization where they're dealing with, they're trying to be the sugar baby. And that's one of the most sought after things right now with younger women is the whole sugar baby role. But, it's going to be extremely hard. And I see it even here in not only here, but in other countries, Latin American countries as well. A lot of men who are with women who are, that are in a relationship or dating women, they're usually only dating either generally average women or slightly above average. I don't really see a lot of foreign men, especially here in Medellin, with women that I would consider, a 9 or a 10. And when I say 9 or a 10, I mean like supermodel type. I've seen local men with them, but I have not seen a lot of foreign men. And, the thing is that these women, a lot of them, they're dealing with multiple men to get whatever they want. They have one guy who flies them out, one guy who gives them money, one guy who's good for just sex, one guy who's good for this, so they're outsourcing all their different needs from different men. But also, as I said as well, is that in a country where prostitution is legal or, sex work is something that is kind of normalized. It's not shamed upon like it is in the United States or Canada or maybe even the UK. I don't know about Australia, but in other parts, it's just something that is somewhat a part of the culture. Definitely, I know it is in Brazil because it's the way a lot of women have the opportunity, or at least the way it was explained to me was a lot of women get into webcamming or OnlyFans is because they have I wouldn't say only, but it's one of the few opportunities they have in order to try to make dollars versus pesos, definitely with OnlyFans. So this is why so many women get into it. And then also too, a lot of these women unfortunately don't have skills, or the education to go and try to learn something and go make more money. They just revert to the easiest thing that's possible. And that's, okay, I'm going to just fall back and rely on my beauty and my sexuality because they know it's always going to be men out there who will pay for that. And, definitely here in Medellin, women know that men are extremely visual and that, looks come first. So the women who really understand that will kind of double down on that and, use that to their advantage.
Because it's really low hanging fruit. The pay for play, like the working girls, is really low hanging fruit. I know some guys who try to cultivate relationships and try to make working girls their girlfriend, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's always a problem.
And to just add to that as well, there are a lot of men who are doing that here in Medellin. And now you would ask yourself, why would you go overseas to another country to find a woman who's involved in some kind of sex work and, to try to make her your girlfriend or whatever, even though you don't do that back in the United States or, in their home country. And the thing is that the pay for play women are going to be some of the more beautiful women. And those women are extremely hard to obtain normally. Like you're not going to just, run into a girl who's a 10 who doesn't have a boyfriend already, or isn't married, or, isn't a sugar baby, who is just a regular, like normal girl. It's extremely hard. So the only opportunity you have to meet one of these women and I would say obtain them long term would be to, go after them. I know one guy here who basically had a baby with a girl who, he will probably say she's a normal girl. She's smart, but he met her online. And when you look at her Instagram before him, she was in Egypt and all these other places. And, women out here, definitely in Medellin or in Colombia, they can afford to travel to Egypt and Europe and Dubai and all these places. So somebody's paying for it, or men are paying for it. But anyways, that's a whole nother story. I know other guys as well, they will start paying initially and then try to transition, paying for the box, and then they try to transition it into a long-term relationship. I know, another guy here who is in a relationship with a working girl, and he can't afford to, basically support her. So he still allows her to go out and work, to make her money. And he's cool with that. And he still will, be in a relationship with her. How? I don't know. But, it's a real thing. And also another thing that's ruining, I would say, just the overall experience abroad with dating is simp culture. That is bleeding more and more into other countries like Brazil and Medellin, where you just have guys who are happy to, have a woman who is pretty and will give them some attention. And, they'll send money, never met these girls before, or they come here, they meet a girl, they go back, they're sending the girl money. Little do they know, the girl has 3 other gringos that she's talking to that she'll ask to send the money, and they'll say, hey, I want to go on a trip to Cali or, Santa Martha or whatever. Can you, send me money to go on a trip? And then they have a guy here who's actually taking them, who's actually paying for everything. So, they'll say, oh yeah, send me money for bikinis or whatever. And the guys will send it. Meanwhile, while they're on vacation, the guy who's with them is taking the picture. She's sending those pictures back to the guy, but she's keeping all the money. And the guy that she's with is the one that's paying for the trip and paying for the bikinis and all that stuff. And, that's the hustle. So it's just what you got to deal with. It's part of the reality.
You know what I'm saying? You may even be in a situation. Where you may luck up and a working girl might give you some poon for free. But it's not going to stay like that. She might like you as a person, but it's not going to stay like that. She's going to want you. Eventually, she's going to be like, hey, dude, you got to pay me. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to be, I don't want to be coming out of pocket.
Either you got to pay her or you got to take care of her. If she give you the box for free and, it's a couple of times, it's going to be expected that you're going to take care of her and expenses.
If I got to pay you every time I see your face, that's not attraction. I'm sorry. It's just not.
And personally, for me, as soon as you involve money, it kills all romance for me, at least in my brain. So I've never been a fan of pay for play. I'm not going to say I haven't done it in the past when I was younger, 18, 19, 20, whatever. But, being a man in my 40s now is, and anytime, even if it's not pay for play, even if a woman here just asks me, hey, can you give me money for XYZ or whatever, it kills all romance for me as soon as money is involved. It's different if I'm going to take you out, I'm going to pay for something, or I offer to take care of something for you. Sure, that was all me. But as soon as you start asking me to, pay for this or buy this or do this, then it's completely gone. And as well, just for that whole arrangement of, hey, I'm going to meet you, I'm going to, pay, and then we get to do, and that's it. For me personally, I'd rather take, let's just say, for example, a girl here for an hour will cost $150. I'd rather take that $150 and use that towards a vacation or something, like that, where I'm going to actually have memories and be able to remember something, experience something new, than just spend it on, a girl for realistically what would maybe be 15, 20 minutes. Because, sex is never usually an hour, and, that's it.
Once you're in that trick bag, man, it's hard to get out. And
it's to speak on that as well, is I think it's hard for a lot of guys to get out because, one, you get accustomed to the quality. It's any girl you pick, that you can pay for, you can have, versus you going out trying to talk to girls. You may get rejected. It may not work out. You got to put a little bit more work in. And this is also to kind of add to this, is that the whole sim culture thing, there's a lot of guys that are coming here that are in either their 40s, mid 40s or 50s or higher, who have a lot of disposable income. And because they have you add disposable income on top of a very low cost of living, or things are a lot cheaper, it just makes it so much easier to simp and trick on girls because it just don't cost that much. Or you got retirement checks that are coming in that, you don't got to work for that money anymore. Or in some cases, some people are investors or whatever. They just have a lot of money coming in. So, they'll have a sugar baby budget or a whole budget or whatever it is. And once you start doing that with some girls here, it's hard for them to revert back and then, go just be with a normal guy when they have some guys who are going to, basically just spend money on them.
So if you're just here for a short period of time, 1 week, 2 weeks, you just want to, just smash bad girls, there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think blurring the lines, when you blur those lines, that's when the problems start. Eventually, depending on where you are in life, I prefer a genuine connection. You know what I'm saying? I prefer I prefer a genuine connection with a girl. Even it don't even necessarily have to end up in me being in a relationship with her. It's just I prefer a mutual attraction.
So on that note, man, I'm going to stop. I'm going to add this link to the video in case any of you guys want to watch the full video. I know I do have some followers who potentially were interested in going to Brazil or going to be moving to Brazil. So maybe this will help give you guys some insight on Rio if you are going to that area. I was just there in January. I absolutely love the city of Rio as far as city-wise, but personally, I'm not just a big fan of Portuguese. And, you know, I know that there's only a very small handful of places that you can use Portuguese versus Spanish. And, you know, as he spoke on the language barrier, that learning curve is extremely steep. Definitely, if you don't know Spanish at all, it'll be even harder. So that's it for this video. I do appreciate you guys watching. As I said, I'm trying to dish out some more content. If you guys can please do me a favor and leave comments. I do see them all. I do respond to the majority of them. Also, if there's any videos that you want to see, that helps me create more content for you guys, because I can cover the things that you guys may want to hear about, being that you got somebody here, you know, with boots on the ground here in Medellin. And that's pretty much it. Appreciate you guys watching, and until the next one, you guys be easy.